What's up, everyone? This is KhUnlimited. Welcome to episode 29 of Spill the Tearal, JRPG Podcast, where we talk about JRPG news, releases, mechanics, what I've been playing, want to play, and more. And so this is a new place, a new location for the video. So if it sounds echoey, I'm sorry. It may sound like shit. I'm not sure. I think it should be fine since it's a cardioid mic, but it may sound worse. Other than that, as I always say, if you're listening on audio services, remember to 5-star. That is appreciated because it does really help. I do have a Twitter, which is @SpillTheTearal, if you want to check me out there. Other than that, in terms of the news, I know Gamescom is happening right now as I'm recording this. There is a decent amount of news that's coming out that I've been kind of noting down. I'm not going to cover anything in this episode because it's still in progress. So instead of doing like some of the news here and some of the news next week, I think it'd be easier if I just do all the news next week in a more like Gamescom, centered episode. So there's going to be no Gamescom news here. That'll be next week. And also, this is the first non-special episode in a while. So usually what I do when there's been a no normal episode in a while is cover the news that I missed. So there's been special episodes for the last like 3 weeks. So that means I would have to cover like pretty much a month of news. I'm not going to do that. That'd be too much. And so I'm just going to be, covering the news this week, especially because if I cover a news story from 3 weeks ago, it's just like out of date and it doesn't really matter anymore. So I'm just going to be covering this week's news, but I am going to be covering the release dates of like the last 2 weeks because surprisingly, there hasn't been that much. Usually there's like 3 to 4 a week, but in the last 3 weeks, there was like maybe like 4 release dates, which is interesting. But yeah, before we get into it, the cool thing that I like to show is this thing this week. For audio listeners, it is just this. It is a simple keychain of the homie from FMA. It is Alphonse. It looks very nice. Just got it from a store here after I moved. Surprisingly, you don't see FMA stuff anywhere really because it's just not really something that's relevant, but was able to get that. It was very nice. Before we get started, as I usually do, let me just pick a random Ghibli card. This did make it to me through the move. I picked the K of Diamonds, which is the main character and the dragon. As you see here, the dragon's like dying, but it is what it is. And on that note, let's get started with the first segment, which is JRPG news. So in terms of the last week of JRPG news, there wasn't actually that much, and like I mentioned, Gamescom is happening. I'm not going to be covering that, but the first thing I do want to mention, I believe this happened a couple of weeks ago, but I'm mentioning it because I always cover news for this, but some Sparking Zero news is they released another character trailer. If you're not keeping up, they've been releasing character trailers pretty often, maybe once every couple of weeks or every few weeks, and so they released a Sparking Zero one for the Android Saga, and based on how they're going, it seems like they're just releasing trailers for the sagas now instead of doing kind of like more interesting trailers where it's like people who use swords or people who are powerful or blah blah blah. They're doing it based on Saga. So we got Android Saga, we got all the Android Saga characters, nothing too interesting there, and I feel like we're going to keep getting that. Also, there was a trailer like I think yesterday kind of counting down 50 days to release, so that is the thing that came out. Nothing really interesting with the trailer. They didn't show anything new. Maybe the only new thing is that they showed a costume for Goku. He was wearing the Yard Art costume. And there was an interview too where they were asked about that, and they pretty much just said, yeah, whatever like story costumes characters will have, they will have it in the game probably. So that's kind of what we know about that. But that trailer itself wasn't too exciting in terms of gameplay or anything like that. But yeah, that's Sparking Zero news we have so far. A bit disappointing because I thought there would be more at Gamescom because they were hyping it up a bit. They weren't hyping it up. They mentioned that it would be there. But so far, like there wasn't actually anything new. There wasn't actually news there. Like not even a character reveal or anything like that. So that's all for Sparking Zero. The next news story is for Final Fantasy 16, a game that I really fucking love, and it was announced for PC. So it was announced for PC to be released on September 17th, 2024, and it was also a demo was released for it, which is really cool. Now, Final Fantasy 16, I've talked about, I really love. I think it's it's my favorite Final Fantasy game. And so it coming to PC is nice. I really want to see how it is because on PS5, it was really good. I was completely fine with it, but I know some people had complaints with the performance of it. So on PC, hopefully, as long as it's a good port, it should run well. But also there is a demo, so, anybody can check it out as you want. And they're also releasing a complete edition that comes with all the DLC. And I don't know why. I checked the prices, at least in America. It's really cheap. Like, I think you could get the base game for like $50 and the complete edition with like all the DLC for $70, which is insane. I'm not sure about the Canadian prices so far, which is where I'm from, but I'm surprised that they're releasing it so cheap. Like I could see, like Final Fantasy 16 isn't a game where like I think you have to wait for a price drop. Like that's like in American prices, a full $60 game, and I'd be fine with it. But that's coming out, and I believe I couldn't find this on the Steam page, but I believe somewhere at least they are doing like a pre-order incentive where if you pre-order, you get a special sword. I think it's like a red sword or something. And I think I saw it on a tweet, and the way they wrote the tweet, it seemed like it's referencing some other Final Fantasy game. So if you know that, you know that. I don't. But they are having some kind of pre-order bonuses on PC, which is nice too. Another news story, which I'm covering because I have been covering it slightly so far, which is about Persona 3, where I'm kind of mentioning every time a new DLC was released. I kind of mentioned Wave 1 seemed kind of disappointing, Wave 2 seemed kind of cool, and now Wave 3 is out, which is called Episode Aegis, The Answer. And they released a new trailer for it too, so you can check that out if you're interested. But based on the description that I read for it, it seems to be the final one. What's kind of confusing to me is, based on the description, it makes it seem like it's the final chapter, which is confusing because the way they're writing it seems like you need this for the story, as if it's like the final chapter for the story, but that wouldn't make sense. That would make the main game incomplete. So maybe it's a final chapter for the DLCs and that's what they mean. But again, I haven't played it, so I don't know. They did have like a very specific description of what it was. I read it last time. It doesn't mean anything to me because I didn't play it, but like, looking at it again, it does seem pretty spoilery in case you are interested in the game, so I'll just refrain myself from reading it. But yeah, Persona 3 Reload Expansion Pass Wave 3, which seems to be the final one, is now out, or at least the trailer is out, which was called The Answer trailer. And the last news story is for a strategy RPG called Muv-Luv Tactics, which was announced. I don't really have anything to talk about this. I just noticed it, I kind of Googled about it. And Muv-Luv seems to be like a Gundam-esque IP, and so they're announcing a game for it. And yeah, there's not really too much news. Again, I could have covered the last month of news, but I'd be talking for way too long, so I thought, like, let me just cover this week's news and just get back to the regular schedule starting this week and next week. And from here, we'll move on to the next segment, which is JRPGs that are releasing this week. Now, for JRPGs that are releasing this week, and as usual, I source these from RPGsite.net and IcicleDisaster.com. We have 4 of them, and I am going to be going over the releases from the last 3 weeks, so pretty much the last week of July to this week, so July 28th to August 24th. Surprisingly, again, there aren't that many. There's 4 that I have here, and that's counting all the weeks, so it's very weird. But let's start with the first one, which is a game that came out on July 31st on PC, which is called Sword of Convaleria. And the logline is fantasy tactical RPG revitalizing the beloved Japanese turn-based and pixel art genre. Collect and train a roster of mercenaries, customize your squad, and use your own strategy to save the nation of Iria. Journey through a world of plot twists where every choice you make will reshape your destiny. Now, this game, I heard of it before. I might have even talked about it on a previous episode, but it looks really fucking good. Like, the art style looks good, the combat looks dope. The weird thing to me is I went on the Steam page and it's free, which I don't understand. I would have to look deeper into it, but like, the only thing I can imagine is that it's a gacha style game, which I'm completely cool with, but it doesn't look like a gacha style game, which is interesting. But I was very surprised that it was free, so this is something that I may check out maybe at some point, maybe like on my Steam Deck if I start using that again. But yeah, it looks pretty cool. It's like a pixel style isometric game. It's free, as I mentioned, and the combat is kind of strategy, grid based type of combat. That's how they're doing it. But yeah, at least just from like looking at the screenshots and the trailer on the Steam page, it looks pretty interesting. So yeah, that came out on July 31st, so it's been out for quite a bit. The next game came out on August 8th on PC, and it's called That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, Isekai Chronicles. If you know the anime about the reincarnated slime, it's about that. And the logline is players can enjoy thrilling action battles that combine flashy special moves and powerful combos. Through leveling up bonds with friends, Rimuru will learn special attacks and even have allies join in to back up Rimuru's attack. Finish off formidable enemies that are coming to destroy Tempest with secret skills animated in retro 8-bit style. Now, when I read that, it was very confusing because it ends with saying skills animated in retro 8-bit style. At least from the clips on the Steam page and the screenshots, that is completely inaccurate. From what I can tell, there is no 8-bit, at least from what I see on the Steam page. The game is animated completely 3D, so it's just like a normal 3D looking game. And I don't know if this is just from the trailer editing perspective or not, but during battle, they did sometimes cut to cutscenes, which are like normal, like anime style edited. Nonetheless, there's no 8-bit anywhere there, so I'm not sure if there is 8-bit animations in the actual game and they just didn't show in the trailer or not, but that was something weird that I noticed. But yeah, like I mentioned, it's 3D. From what I can tell, the movements seem mostly isometric in terms of where the camera angle is. There's city building aspects, which makes sense if you've watched the anime. And in terms of the combat, from the trailer I was watching, I couldn't tell exactly what it was, but it's interesting because it's 2D, so it's like side by side, and like you're fighting the enemy like that. It seems to be real time, from what I can tell, and I believe they might have even mentioned that in the description. But yeah, it's a very interesting looking game. Camera is changing a lot, the style is changing a lot. If there's 8-bit somewhere in there, the style is changing a lot. But yeah, it's a game that came out on August 8th on PC. The next one is August 20th, which was yesterday from when I'm recording. That came out on PS5 and PC, which is Black Myth Wukong. Now, this is a game I know that's been really hyped. I've talked about it on a previous episode. I believe on an episode I kind of dedicated the JRPG I'm looking forward to segment to this game because it's very interesting. Technically, it's not JRPG. I believe it's Chinese-based, but it looks fucking amazing. Surprisingly, I saw on Steam, it's right now overwhelmingly positive in terms of the review, which is really cool to see. And let me read the logline real quick, which is, Black Myth Wukong is an action RPG rooted in Chinese mythology. You shall set out as the destined one to venture into the challenges and marvels ahead to uncover the obscure truth beneath the veil of glorious legend from the past. And from what I remember from before, it has like Souls-like combat. It's kind of, like Souls, kind of darker and grittier, but it is Chinese inspired. And that's something that I'm really interested in because at least visually and like even the cutscene wise, comedically, it seems something that's more to my taste, where Souls, I'm not really a fan of their style. Like they're kind of like dark, gory designs and stuff. That's not really my thing. But like this really seems like my thing. So this is a game that I definitely want to try at some point. This is a game, I don't know if there is, but this is a game like if there's a demo, I 100% want to try, because if it's too hard, I'm probably not going to get it. But if I play the demo and I'm able to get through it easily, then I'll probably buy the game. But I'm not sure if there is a demo for it, which again, this would be the perfect game for there to be a demo of. But yeah, this came out literally yesterday, August 20th. And the last game that I want to mention for the release date is coming out tomorrow, August 22nd on PC, which is called Rentaros Wanderings. I'm just making sure that's what it is. It's written very light. And the logline is, the story is set in Rentaros, a remote town far away from the capital of Melvania. The adventure begins as the protagonist visits the town and tries to help the residents, each with distinctive personalities. Suddenly, a mysterious light appears that leads the protagonist to a completely different world. Could it be that this world is the real world? Learn the secrets of the two worlds. Okay, that's all. I mentioned this before, but I read these loglines the first time on the podcast so I can react to them in real time. They're mentioning that was very weird at the end. A new world comes, and that world is maybe the real world, and so you're pretty much exploring the two worlds. That's a pretty cool logline, honestly. And from what I saw, it's a 3D game. It's 3D isometric. It's 3D in the sense that it's isometric and 3D models. It's not really like a 3D movie camera type game. From what I saw from the description, there's bonding mechanics or partner mechanics, kind of like Rune Factory, I think, where like you can, I think, partner with different people and get married, possibly. So that's the thing. In terms of the combat, it seems to be kind of, from what I can tell, it looks kind of like East. I don't think they had anything in motion from what I saw, but like from the screenshots and the camera, it looks like it was real-time combat, kind of like the older East games where it's isometric, it's real-time, and you just go and fight enemies as you kind of explore around. So that's what I can tell from what I saw from the Steam page. But this comes out tomorrow on PC, August 22nd, called Rentaros Wanderings. And from there, that does it for all the release dates for JRPGs from the last 3 weeks. And for the next segment, we will move on to a JRPG mechanic that I think is dope. Now, for a JRPG mechanic that I think is dope, and I kind of got inspired to, pick this one based on the Dragon Ball Sparking Zero trailer that came out recently that showed kind of Goku in his Yardor costume. But I was kind of thinking about costumes in JRPGs and how some games do it, some games don't, and kind of what I like about them. In general, I don't use them. It's not like that I don't like them. It could be in a game. I don't care. I won't use them if I don't like it. But in general, I don't like them when they kind of go overboard. For example, in the Trails games, they have like a system where you can change clothes and stuff. But they go kind of overboard where you can change the hair color. You can put on goofy glasses. You can put accessories and like random like keychains and shit on you. I don't do any of that. That's maybe a thing you want to do on your second playthrough. But for me personally, when I'm going through my first playthrough, I want like a full canon run in terms of how they look. If they're wearing like certain clothes, that's how they should look throughout the game. That's just me personally. And even like, going farther in terms of the wigs and accessories, I don't think I ever use that because, like, for example, if a character has like silver hair, I feel like that's kind of like iconic to them, and so changing their hair to like blonde or blue or red is kind of weird to me. Like, that's not how they look. That's not them, and so I usually never do that. But what I realized, what I tend to do in games is if there's costumes that were given in canon, then I'm okay with putting them on because it makes sense. One example for this is in Trails of Cold Steel 3, I believe. Pretty much in Trails of Cold Steel 3 is 3 and 4. Trails of Cold Steel 3, Reen, he's an adult. He's wearing this white coat and it looks cool as fuck. And he's like a teacher. That's kind of his uniform. And in Trails of Cold Steel 4, something happens. I won't go into it, but he kind of changes his style and he's wearing like black. He has like a black leather jacket, black clothes, and that's kind of his new style. And that's kind of what you're wearing, and it looks cool. But like I always preferred the original coat better because that just looks a lot better to me. And what happens in the game is at some point you kind of get back to your apartment, let's say, and you find your white coat, and then after the cutscene is done, it says like you can wear that white coat if you want. And since I like that better, and since in canon he literally found his coat, it just makes sense that he'd wear that if he wants to. And so that's a case where it actually makes sense to me that if I want to change back to the old coat, he would, like, in character in the game, he can literally just fucking take off his coat and put it on, so it makes sense. It wouldn't make sense that he would just like dye his hair red all of a sudden in the middle of the story or something. So that's an example of costumes that makes sense to me, where if you get them in the game, in canon, in the story, and you can change them, that's cool. Or I would even say is like if you're playing a game and in the story they just change outfits a lot. If they give you each outfit as you kind of unlock new ones, that's cool too. I can see this being cool in something like Kingdom Hearts, for example, where like in Kingdom Hearts 2, you know, there's a moment I saw where you're wearing your kind of like stupid looking Kingdom Hearts 1 clothes and you change to the Kingdom Hearts 2 clothes. If there is someone who likes the Kingdom Hearts 1 clothes, if you had the option to change back to them, that'd be something that'd be pretty easy for them to do, I feel like, because that's just a cosmetic thing. There's nothing like specific to that. And that, yeah, that'd be like a cool thing to do. And for example, hypothetically, if like later in the game you change clothes again, they would give you the option to change back to the Kingdom Hearts 2 clothes if you wanted to. So that's the thing where JRPG is like, yeah, if you can change to at least canon costumes, that's something I would really love. But again, if they have a lot of customizations, that's fine with me. But I prefer to stick with canon in terms of that. And I think it would be really fun if you have that in more JRPGs. I know it's not, you don't see it too much. I feel like maybe like in the ones that I play, you don't see it too much, but it is something that I noticed in the Trails games. Then I noticed Kingdom Hearts kind of veering towards that, because I believe in Kingdom Hearts 0.2, 2.8, 0.2, I think it was called, the Aqua one. I think they had some stuff in there where you got to wear like Disney ears and shit like that. And I can't even remember if they had in Kingdom Hearts 3. I straight up don't remember if they had any customization in that. But yeah, it is something where like, yeah, again, if they stick to canon, that's something that I would like. And from here, we'll move on to the next segment, which is a JRPG that I'm looking forward to. Now, for this week's JRPG I'm looking forward to is going to be one of those where it's a JRPG I would look forward to, as in I'm going to be creating a hypothetical JRPG. But I was kind of thinking about like JRPGs and the ones I play. And something that I noticed is, at least the JRPGs that I play, they're very rarely good in like multiplayer or like co-op. And so I like that's a JRPG I would look forward to if there was one. Specifically, the one I was thinking about is like a Genshin like games, so Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, ZZZ, Wuthering Waves, those type of games, where like they seem like games where co-op would make a lot of sense. And some of them do have co-op, but like for some reason every single time they're just like underwhelming. They're not that well done. The first example I'll give is Genshin Impact, where first of all you have to level like a fuck ton to even unlock it. I believe it was level like 20 something or whatever it was. And I remember like I was grinding to get to there, and my brother was too at the time. And when we got to the co-op, it was like shit. Like it wasn't that good. Like I think you can join each other's worlds, at least at the time we played. And the only thing we were able to do was like do like dungeons together, which is like whatever. Like what I imagine is that if, especially because you can invite each other into the world, you'd be able to walk around, fight bad guys, do the dungeons, do other stuff, and just pretty much like it'd be the exact same thing as you playing alone but with someone else. I get if you can't do the story, I that makes sense, but like everything else I think should be free game. So the fact that wasn't how Genshin was disappointing. Again, I don't know how it is now, but from what I can tell from like Google searches I've done in the past, it still isn't great. And then like Honkai Star Rail came out, and I was playing that, and that was a game I was playing, and I wasn't expecting to play multiplayer turn-based. I wouldn't understand how that would work either, but like I was curious to see what the multiplayer was. And in that, it was even like less so. It was, I believe, the multiplayer was that you can just pretty much share your characters with your friends so they could use it in battles, and that was it. And again, this is turn-based. I don't know what multiplayer system they would have, but like it'd be cool if they had some kind of like maybe even like Pokemon like thing where like you can like face each other or something. But again, multiplayer doesn't seem to be a focus on these type of games from Hoyo. Then we have Wuthering Waves is the next game I played, and Wuthering Waves is, I think, the best attempt at something like this, where like it's a Genshin type game and they have multiplayer, and me and my brother play. We can invite each other in our worlds, and you can fight anyone in the open world. You can do specific battles and specific modes or things that you would usually do in the world. But for some reason, there's some things that you can't do. So for example, there are tactical hologram battles where you get to fight a very strong boss, and at least in my eyes, that's like a perfect thing you would want multiplayer for. If there's a boss is really fucking hard for you, it'd be cool to invite your friend and to do it, so like you both can beat it. But that is something that just straight up does not work in multiplayer. They have these gates or like different modes that you'd be able to do alone, like this. I think there's like a mode where like you go up a tower. You cannot do that in multiplayer. There's this roguelike mode they have. You cannot do that in multiplayer. And for some of them I get, but like at some point, like it just seems arbitrary where they're making the line for multiplayer. If you're able to invite them to the world, let us do everything that's in the world that makes sense. Like a lot like the tactical hologram, that makes perfect fucking sense to do in multiplayer, but it's just not a thing you can do. And so hopefully that is something that gets better. Wuthering Waves did have a survey, like I remember like a month ago that I wrote into, and they mentioned like, hey, how can we improve multiplayer? And I kind of wrote what I was talking about right now. So hopefully it is something that gets better in the future. And at least the developers of Wuthering Waves do seem receptive based on all these surveys they're doing. So hopefully it's a change that we will see. But yeah, it's just kind of disappointing that these type of games don't really have multiplayer. Another one is ZZZ. ZZ, which is on Zone Zero, I'm playing. I don't know what the multiplayer is in that. The only thing I kind of have an idea is there's an arcade in the world where you get to play games. And I remember I was able to play with an NPC in the game, and I think you could maybe play the multiplayer because there's a multiplayer option. Other than that, I'm not sure if there is actually any multiplayer, which, again, that game is a real-time battle game. It's mission-based. That's like the perfect thing to have in multiplayer. Is like, yeah, let's have another person fight with me. Again, I understand why it is slightly hard in terms of balance. Usually you only fight with one character at a time. With multiplayer, it'd be two characters at a time. But obviously, multiplayer would take work. That's why it makes it so much fun. So that's another example where I feel like Zone Zero would be a perfect multiplayer game, especially because it is mission based. Like, they don't even have to do a thing where your friend has to be in your open world. It would just be like, I go into a mission, invite my friend, and you guys are just able to play together. But they just don't have it. So hopefully that is something we see more in the future. And multiplayer does exist in games in general. Obviously, it's mostly what I noticed, and it's in more like Souls-like games. I don't know why. Maybe because they're known to be hard, so they just want to have multiplayer options. I know Dark Souls games have some kind of shitty multiplayer where you get to summon people. I've never liked it. The mod is pretty popular for Elden Ring, the seamless co-op mod. So I'd rather have it like the seamless co-op way. Some other games, this technically isn't a JRPG, but Lords of the Fallen is a Souls-like game, which has, I think, a really good multiplayer that I played with my brother. Nioh 2 is a JRPG, which I think had a very good multiplayer, where you pretty much, I believe, get to play the entire story with someone. So the multiplayer modes do exist, but specifically, I want it more for the Genshin type games, which are open world, where like I feel like it's perfect for having a buddy with you and just going through the world. At least I don't expect them to be able to go through the story with me. I know that's asking for too much, but at least being able to do all the other worlds, all the other modes with someone, I think would be a nice change of pace. But yeah, JRPGs with multiplayer, specifically Genshin JRPGs with multiplayer, I think would be a JRPG that I would look forward to. And from here, we'll move on to the next segment, which is what I've been playing. In terms of what I've been playing for the past week, it is nothing. I've just been focusing on the move. I can talk about what I played in the last 3 weeks. The only thing really is a bit of Wuthering Waves. Nothing really to note there. It's been the same old, just me exploring, doing dailies, things like that. I think there's been an update since then. I haven't tried it, I believe, based on what my brother said. The only thing I've actually been playing more in depth is Honkai Star Rail. I mentioned that I had to play it from the start again because they kind of fucked up my regions when I started playing. They put me in Europe when I was supposed to be in America. Now that I'm playing on America server, I have to start again. And so I'm doing that. I'm still in the early stages. I believe I'm still at the starting space station. I haven't played that much. I've just been doing some of the side quests. I am remembering that the game is pretty good. The combat is very fun. I really like the NPCs and, the stories in general. And so yeah, it's just been a really fun time so far. I don't really have anything specific to say about it, but that is just an update of what I've been playing. And from here we'll move on to the final segment, which is my JRPG top casual list. So for this week's JRPG top casual list, and if you're new, this segment is just a top casual list where I pick a top list and I pick the top 3 casually. I don't think about it too hard. It's off the top of my head. Maybe tomorrow the list would be different for me, but this week I want to talk about the top multiplayer JRPGs because I did talk about this previously in the episode, and I was kind of thinking about it, and again, this is from the top of my head, but I would say my list is number 3, Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, number 2, Nioh 2, number 1, Kingdom Hearts 350 over 2 days. Now, there are other games I like. Again, Wuthering Waves is one that I like a lot, less multiplayer, but again, it feels kind of half-baked, where I feel like these 3 are done in better ways, and these 3 are pretty different. So number 3 is Birth by Sleep. This is a multiplayer system, which usually I wouldn't like because it's a very separated system where you pretty much just do these isolated missions with people. But I thought it was cool, especially for the first time for Kingdom Hearts, where it was very customizable, where you got to pick your character, you got to pick your armor, pick their color. It was pretty cool like that. And in terms of the mission-based system, it was fun. I thought it worked great. Again, it was very isolated. There was absolutely no story. But in terms of purely enjoyment aspect, I think it did it really well. So that's why Birth by Sleep is number 3. And number 2, we have Nioh 2. I think Nioh 2 is probably, in terms of how it implemented the multiplayer, is the best because you literally can just play the entire story with someone. The only reason it's at number 2 is because I haven't played too much of it. I played it for a day with my brother, but from what we played, we were straight up just doing the story. We were bad at it because it's a hard game, but you just do the story, you fight the enemies, you fight the bosses, and it's just implemented very well. They have very specific systems for multiplayers in terms they have a meter that I think fills up the more you die, and the more it fills up, the worse it is for you, etc., etc. And if it fills up too much, you have to restart the mission. So they clearly have a very thought out system for multiplayer. So I thought it was done very well in Nioh 2 and implemented fantastically. And at number 1 is Kingdom Hearts 350 over 2 days. This is just purely enjoyment enjoyment factor. I just have very good memories of playing 358 over 2 days, at home, at school. It was just very fucking cool that you got to play as so many characters that you never got to play as before, because you would expect to play as like maybe Roxas, but you could play as Roxas, Shion, Axel, Organization 13, Donald and Goofy were there for some fucking reason. But yeah, in terms of like implementation, it was like Birth by Sleep was mission based, but it felt less isolated because it's not like you were in some like random area. You were going through kind of the worlds that you played in 358 over 2 days and doing like random missions, fighting Heartless. But it was just very cool where like you can straight up be playing as Axel and your friend could be like, you know, Sykes and be different Organization 13 members, and you're just going through, fighting the enemy. So I thought it was done very well. And yeah, that's pretty much my list. Number 3, Birth by Sleep. Number 2, Neo 2. And number 1, 358 over 2 days. And that is the end of episode 29 of Spill the Tearal. If you made it to this part of the podcast, thank you very much. If you're here and you enjoyed the episode, remember to leave a like. If you have anything to say, remember to leave a comment. Something that I might do, I'm not sure, I'll see in editing. I pretty much upload my podcast to Spotify and that disseminates it to other services. They do support video podcasts now, so I may just upload my video to audio services and see what happens. From my understanding, it should be a video version on Spotify and they automatically make an audio version on everything else. Hopefully that is true. I'll look into it, and if it is how I think it is, I'll do it. If not, it'll just be on audio services normally as audio and video on YouTube. But yes, I am on YouTube too as a video podcast. If you didn't know, on the YouTube channels KhUnlimited and Spill the Tearal. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Spill the Tearal. Remember to 5-star or thumbs up this podcast if that's on your audio service, if you're listening and made it this far. And I'll see you guys next week for episode 30. Peace.